want to welcome everybody. My name is Rachel Berger, and I work for Nefesh B'Nefesh. I run the employment department, and tonight we have a wonderful panel that I'm thrilled to share with you that will discuss tech opportunities in Israel. This session will be taped so that if you miss anything or want to hear it again, you have that opportunity. I'm going to take this opportunity right now to talk a little bit about our wonderful panelists and what it is that they have to offer. And then each person will share their experiences and also talk a little bit about tech opportunities in Israel and how some of you can pivot your career if it's a pivot, and some of you can transfer your career. We're also going to address things that have to do with the current situation in terms of Corona. But at this time, I would like to introduce Roy Munin, who is, and Roy maybe wave so everybody can see you, a community entrepreneur in Jerusalem and the CEO and co-founder of Made in JLM, a community that helped increase Jerusalem's tech startups per year and brought billions of dollars in tech investment to the city. I've watched Made in JLM happen, and I have to tell you, he is a real game changer in terms of what this city looks like. I've been involved in Jerusalem for 30 years, and putting Jerusalem on the tech map is unbelievable what Made in JLM has done. And then Ari Bornstein, who is the founder of Olim in Tech. I must say the words Olim in Tech maybe 15 to 20 times a day. It's a nonprofit dedicated to building and strengthening the network between Olim with software development backgrounds and the Israeli tech ecosystem. He will talk a little bit about his aliyah and why he started Olim in Tech and how it helps people. And Johnny Neiman will then speak. He is the program manager at Krahim Tech Heights, which he is also, I think, the founding member of. And he works with immigrant software engineers and connects them with Israeli companies. I think if you pay attention and listen to these three superstars, it will be essential in terms of you building your career in Israel and getting a sense of the opportunities. I will now be quiet and I will be manning the chat. You can ask all your questions, and if at the end we have time, I will allow for the questions. I will ask them out loud so that these three very fine panelists can address these questions. So at this point, Roy, if you don't mind starting the panel discussion about tech opportunities in Israel.
Right. Hi. So I'm Roy. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Made in Jerusalem, the Jerusalem startup and tech community. We're a nonprofit that helps develop the Jerusalem tech ecosystem. So if you look at Israel most times, if you think of tech, you would usually think of Tel Aviv, but Jerusalem has seen its fair share of growth in the past 7 to 8 years, and is now actually ranked as one of the top 55 tech cities in the world, and presents a few great opportunities if you're moving in from anywhere as well. Our job at Made in JLM is to search for those things that are missing for us to grow even bigger, and make those happen together with the community so that you have a better city to come to. Jerusalem is one of the cities that most Olim look for as their first destination, but a lot of them don't stay because historically there haven't been enough good, lucrative job opportunities. And so we're trying to change that. We have been successful in starting a movement, and we're now working together with the city and the local players to make that happen. You may think of Jerusalem in the context of Mobileye, which is one of the kind of world changers of autonomous driving and the leaders on that. They're based here in Jerusalem. They were acquired by Intel. It's one of Israel's largest acquisitions in the history of, I think it's still the #1 acquisition of Israel. And so they have a few thousand engineers here developing the future of autonomous driving. And from that, we have a lot of spin-offs and companies, especially I think if you're in the space of computer vision, image processing, AI. As an engineer, I think those are the top reasons to be in Jerusalem versus anywhere else. But those are mature companies, and we have a lot of jobs other than engineering. So marketing, sales, design, especially if you're bringing your international language to those companies, I think is very highly in demand. And I think you should just try to look before you think of Aliyah and before you plan out all of your kind of logistics, just see what's out there. And we have a job board that automatically takes all the jobs in the community. Maybe I'll share my screen and show it to you just so you know where to find it. So it's, if you go to our website, madeinjlm.org, and you search and click jobs, you will actually get to an older version of this. So we just recently launched a new website with all the tech jobs. So you get to here. This board that we had before also lists what's the status of companies during Corona time. So if they're hiring or not right now. It's loading a bit slowly because of the Zoom, I think, but it's going to be up soon. And you can see all the companies here with their status and their jobs. And the way you search here is you have a small search up here. So you can search for something like web and just find jobs. And the way I do it, and it kind of highlights, so you have to jump between them. So the way I do it is usually filter, position contains web. And this really like filters it for you and shows you what's in the city, what's a remote company that has what's like an office in the city that you can join. Envision is a great company. In the new version of this, search is much easier. It's just a normal search like you would expect from any other I don't know, search engine. And you can just search and you can see all the companies. You have a description of the companies in the new version. So if you click this, you'll see the company and all the jobs that they have. We're now adding some more description and I don't know, general information, but you can still find everything about each company that you're interested in right here. So if you're looking for, I don't know, like an Android job, let's see, this could actually be buggy. Yeah. So if you're looking for an Android job, these are the Android jobs that we know in the city. So if you check out all these companies and there's nothing for you right now, keep following, maybe you'll find more things. So I think that's it about the job board. I'm happy to take any questions on that. Yeah, and it's important to say that what's special about this job board is that it updates automatically. So you can, we just follow our list of companies and we update it all the time. And then companies don't have to manually post. It's just like whatever is on the site right now is live on that company's website. So you know it's relevant and that the company keeps it updated. So that's one resource that I think you should know. Another resource is, feel free to stop me if I'm taking too much time. So another resource that you should know is the Jerusalem Startup and Tech Community. We have a Facebook group, and I think that's a great place to just follow, see, hear about the news, see what people are talking about, ask questions. Feel free to say, hey, I'm from wherever and I'm looking for such a job. Maybe a company will reach out to you. We have some of the best companies and investors and universities in the cities that are following that group. So maybe I'll link to that in the description, in the chat. It's just Jerusalem Startup and Tech Community on Facebook. And also our website and Facebook page, Made in JLM or Made in Jerusalem. If you type in both of those to Facebook or Google, you'll find it. We just post everything that is happening that we're present at, if it's networking events or I don't know, any kind of live events that you can join right now. We have a monthly happy hour that's completely open to the public. A lot of that content is in English. Our team is like 50-50 split between English speakers and Hebrew speakers. So we try to cater to both. We have a local population here of students who like it more when things are in Hebrew, and we have a global kind of population that comes to Jerusalem and wants and expects things to be in English. So we try to do both. Yeah, and I think that's the general. Oh, if you want any tips on finding a job in Jerusalem, specifically now in the time of Corona, we recently posted a live series where Yelena from our team interviews different HR officers of the top companies in the city and asks them, what is it like to apply for your company? What's interesting about your company? What are kind of tips for writing your CV to get in? Who do you need to talk to outside of sending your CV? Johnny and I actually did a whole podcast about that as well. So Johnny will talk after me, so follow his podcast. And I think that's a great series to follow. If you want to learn more about employers here in the city, we do 2 employers each week, and we're adding it all to a playlist that you can find on our page, Made in JLM or Made in Jerusalem. In videos, you can see all the companies that we interviewed, and those are usually 40-minute interviews. So yeah, I think if that's okay,
Can you
I'll leave
just
that with you.
discuss a little bit the growth? You've been Made in JLM is how many years? How many
7.
years old? 7 years, right?
Actually,
And
yeah.
I remember when you
Yeah.
started. Can you just discuss the growth of the tech community here? And can you also discuss positions that are not necessarily programming or software or engineering, but also content writing and support positions that exist here in the city within the different companies?
Sure. So I think what was special that was happening in Jerusalem is that because Tel Aviv is has such is such a big city and is so attractive and is one of the top, really, like usually on the lists around between number 2 and number 6 in the world in terms of tech cities. We've had this problem in Jerusalem for a long time, that people would start a startup in Jerusalem, maybe come out of a big company or a university and have an idea, and within 1 or 2 weeks they would be in Tel Aviv because all of the investors were there, all the meetups were there, and it's not a big distance. It's a 40-minute drive, but it's a bit like San Francisco in the Valley. There's a big difference in terms of mentality, and it's 2 very different cities that are very close by. And what we did as Made in JLM was basically to just start talking to people and hearing all these stories of people who think they're the only ones in Jerusalem and connecting them to each other. And that created a community, and it created, we started sharing news, and suddenly people were starting meetups and accelerators and funds that were focused only on Jerusalem companies and co-working spaces. And so within 2 to 3 years, there was starting to be this big movement of people who are staying in Jerusalem, and not just staying for the first 2 weeks of their startups, but for their first year. And that brought in a lot of investment as well, because now companies were a bit more mature and more fundable. So between 2012 and 2015, we were listed as one of the top 5 emerging tech hubs in the world. We had companies were growing from, there was a flat number of about 20 companies in the city, new companies per year. It grew to 100 new companies per year. And then investments went from $50 million per year to $250 million per year. To put it in perspective, it's still about 10%, or it depends, could be even 5% of the Israeli industry. So we still have a lot of room for growth. But to put that in perspective, Tel Aviv is about 20% of the Israeli industry, but the whole kind of metropolitan around it could be between 50 and 60%. So we need to grow still, like somewhere between 2 to 5 to 10 to reach, to be able to compete with Tel Aviv. We believe we will do that in Jerusalem. It'll take some time. But there's a lot of potential, especially I think in the underprivileged, underserved populations, in both the students here. We have 90%, Jerusalem is the number 1, like in number of computer science students, but 95% of them don't have junior jobs here, so they leave immediately. So if we can bring more junior jobs, we will have a lot more people staying. And then Jerusalem is 25% ultra-Orthodox Jewish, and that is a population that is really under participating in the tech economy right now. And we were already seeing accelerators both for men and women in the ultra-Orthodox sector. So if you're from that sector and want to find a job in Jerusalem, I think right now you have some amazing opportunities to do that in some top.
I want to just add, if I may, that there's something that all of the Olim should know about called the Innovation Authority, Reshut HaChadshנות. And they have 2 programs. They have a program that if you have a certain amount of ultra-Orthodox employees, they will give funding towards the company. And about a month or 2 ago, they started a program that if you don't have experience and you're what they call a junior person, they will give up to 50,000 shekels per employee to a tech company. Now, this is important for people who are pivoting their career, and it's important if you just took like a cybersecurity course, or you took your starter and you find that it's difficult getting a job. Anybody who wants, I'll put my email out. I can send you the link from the Innovation Authority for this benefit. But it's important for you to know that not only are some of you transferring your career here, but some of you might be also pivoting. And the state of Israel is invested in its human capital. They want to see you succeed because the tech engine is what really gets this country going. We're not orange growers anymore, we're really tech producers now. And that's something to keep in mind as you plan your aliyah. Thank you so much, Roy, at this point. And there are a lot of questions coming in, so I'm gonna get every one of you later. At this point, I would like Ari to tell a little bit of his aliyah story, why he founded Olim in Tech, and what he sees in terms of the tech ecosystem. Ari, by the way, I believe you're in Tel Aviv, correct? We can't hear you. You're on mute. Ari, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Yes, absolutely. I'm based here in Tel Aviv. Sorry about the whole mute thing. I didn't want to have any background noise while Roy was talking. So yeah, a little bit about myself and my own background. I wear a couple different hats. One of them is I'm one of the 7 co-founders and board members and the chairman of the board for Olim in Tech, which is an organization that tries to provide opportunities for Olim to network and also to expand their network within the Israeli high-tech industry, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Additionally, I wear a couple other hats. I'm currently, I do work in natural language processing and AI research lab at Bar Ilan, and I also am in charge of Microsoft's developer advocacy in Israel for AI and artificial intelligence, and scaling a lot of the work that's done locally in the AI community here in Israel globally, and supporting a lot of our global initiatives at Microsoft. So a lot of different activities and hats. In terms of my own aliyah story, so it started for me about 10 years ago. I did a gap year in Israel, year course, which was a transformative experience for me. At that point, I wanted to make aliyah. I spoke a lot with my parents about it, and they convinced me at the time that was really important from their own experiences being in Israel and going back and forth to invest and come to Israel with a bachelor's degree. And I went and I did that. My background's a little bit mixed, so maybe I can provide some perspectives for those in the tech industry and also some who are outside and looking to pivot, because I have a dual degree in history and computer science, in a little bit of the liberal arts and the computer side of things as well. After finishing that degree, I wanted to make aliyah, but I wanted to make sure that I was coming to Israel with the tools to succeed. So I had an opportunity to work with Microsoft for 2 years in Manhattan, working with a lot of the top universities on the East Coast and the students there, as well as some of the top companies in New York, and developing AI and mobile solutions. And after those 2 years, I was able to build up eventually a network and move with Microsoft to Israel. And I had this interesting experience. So as I mentioned earlier, I did a year course 10 years ago, and I had a lot of friends who made aliyah straight after it. And by the time I had gotten to Israel about 4 years ago, the majority of my friends who had made aliyah had already had this challenge. Many of them had this challenge over the time where they had moved back. And what they told me was there's this period, you come to Israel, it's amazing, but eventually there's a period that they called the okets. Okets in Israel means like a stinger, or like the sting, like if a mosquito or a bee stings you, it's the okets. And it's this period that can be really challenging. And if you get through that, a lot of people succeed and they're here for a very long time. But for a lot of people, it can be very challenging. We saw that there were a lot of people who would face this and they would go back. And one of the things that I noticed from my own experience, I expected, 6 months would go by and maybe I would hit this period. Another 6 months went by and I didn't. And I had, really good infrastructure. And what I started to notice was, I was very lucky in terms of the investment that I built to build like an infrastructure of working in a top tech company in Israel and having friends, and did the year course, and I did other Masa programs, and I built this foundation. And what I noticed from my friends who were very successful in the industry who also were able to do that, many of them who later became board members in Olim and Tech, is that those who are successful, they kind of get integrated into what are called misgerot. Like it's kind of like a frame or like a community within the Israelis that they work with, whether that's, you know, at work or whether that's people they meet in different groups. But the challenge, and I think that's great, and it's super important to have that groundedness, because that's how you adapt in the country. But the challenge is when people were successful and they would have that, we noticed that there was no real opportunity to pay that forward. So a lot of people had built and stood on the shoulders of others to get to where they were in the high-tech ecosystem, and then got, you know, integrated with their work friends. And when somebody else made Aliyah and was interested in getting into the high-tech sector, they didn't know where to go. And I spoke to many friends, and they were also, you know, passionate about what they were doing, passionate about Israel, wanting to be able to give back, but they had no idea even how to connect to people who were coming in and making Aliyah with technical backgrounds. So that was kind of the IOTIS for Olim and Tech. As an organization, what we do is we do two things. One is we try to do informal happy hours and networking events. Recently, because of COVID, we've done more virtual activities around that. But as things, hopefully, the situation improves, we'll go back to that very, very soon. We try to do also content events where we bring different people from across the ecosystem. We do technical workshops from different technologies like React, Python, AI. We bring in people to speak who are other Olim founders, or we bring in people to speak who are people from the different VCs. And we try to give informational content and also provide people with that networking opportunity. And we also run and monitor and manage a support group called Olim and Tech on Facebook, which the goal there again is to provide that network. So if you're, one of the things I would recommend, and I think one of the key things to having a successful Aliyah, especially in the technical industry, is getting your first job and getting that experience. And it can be overwhelming. I've had friends who have gone through, you know, submitted hundreds of resumes and gone through hundreds of interviews before they got their dream job. They did get the dream job though. And one of the things that I think really can provide that support and that help is having this community and this network. So what I always recommend is, for instance, if you see the job that you're interested in, instead of just sending your resume there and it potentially getting lost in, you know, the bureaucracy of HR, you post in the group and you introduce yourself and you say you're interested in a role in this company and ask if you have connections. And we personally go through it and try to make sure to tag the people that we know, and we try to build a community that way. And we've been very, very successful so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing that go forward. And the only last thing I would say there that's really important, that's kind of like fundamental to what we do, is if you're somebody who joins that Olim Tech community and that you help, the only thing that we ask is that if you see another Ole or another person in Israel who's also struggling or challenged, has a really good background but is struggling to find their way through, if you can pay that forward, that's all we ask in return. So that's a little bit about me and what I do, and I'll hand it back to Johnny and Rachel.
Thank you so much. And thank you really for starting Olim and Tech. Like I said, I mention it maybe 10 to 15 times a day for people to network and have a misgeret, have a community. And it really is a community. I've watched people write, hey, I'm a UXer, I'm coming over, and somebody else says, PM me, there are jobs at Monday. So people should just know that it sounds funny to say this because you're seeing us on a screen. We are your friends. We are here to help you build your Aliyah. That's why we're at 6 o'clock in the evening, not eating dinner with our, others or whatever. We are here with you, and it's very important that you know that. And these communities that are built in order to help you integrate into this world of tech in Israel. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Johnny, who I've worked with, I don't know, for 5 years already.
6.
Since 6 years already, it's flying. in Gvahim. Gvahim is an organization that helps people integrate into the world of work in Israel, founded by a nice person named Michael, who just said that we needed to find ways that quality candidates find opportunities in Israel, and he created a whole system. Gvahim has 15 workers, 17 workers, like a lot of
20.
about 20 people who work in the different industries. And Johnny will share with us a little bit about tech and tech opportunities. He has a an all over Israel version of this, not only Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, because he deals with everyone everywhere. Go ahead.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Rachel, and thanks for inviting us. Thanks for organizing this panel. So exactly, Gvahim is an organization, as you mentioned, that was set up around 14 years ago, exactly because of one of the things that Ari mentioned, like the two main obstacles that the Olim usually have when they come to Israel is the lack of the cultural, when we talk about job search and career, is the culture, the professional culture, and also the lack of network and community. And that's also from the same point that Gvahim was started. We saw those were the two obstacles that a lot of very highly skilled Olim have when they come here. So we set up this whole system and these programs that basically takes these two obstacles into account and how you can overcome them. And the main thing that really stands out that we do in what we say is that we have a whole pool of Israeli mentors that basically connect each Ole to a mentor from Israeli professionals. And you'll be surprised of how willing Israelis are to volunteer and help Olim. So basically that's how we overcome these two main obstacles, the lack of the culture. We do workshops, we do training programs, we do one-to-one consultations, and then we connect each Ole to a mentor, Israeli professional from his field, which is very key to how you get a position in Israel. As Ari mentioned, having a CV, sending a CV and being just a number it's just a number in the system, or just being anonymous against versus having it sent to someone who is in the organization and it can help push it forward and make a recommendation means the world in Israel. And that's basically the founding principles that Gvahim was based on. It's about leveraging the community. And in that sense, Gvahim is like the fraternity mentality that you have in the US. So the Tech Heights program is basically one of the specialty programs we have. It basically focuses only on software engineers and data scientists. We also have programs that are for sales, marketing, and all the non-tech positions within the high-tech business and high-tech sector. That we call the career, the Gvahim Career Center, and also we have a program called Aliyah Prep. So, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the lack of software engineers in Israel and why our program came into force and how it's structured. So basically there's a need of 15,000 engineers in Israel. Could be like here during the Corona times, might have fallen a little bit, but it's still, there's a huge need. And it's not because there's less engineers, it's because the Israeli tech sector is just booming and just needing all the time more front-end engineers, more full stack, more data scientists, people good at math, of course, and can also pivot into the data science field. And that's why we got started to first of all, encourage more engineers to make Aliyah from all over the world. But also to, of course, when you come here, make sure that you get integrated, get connected to the right people and the right mentors and the right companies and get fully integrated into the economy. So Gvahim as an organization has been existing for, again, we said 14 years, more than 3,000 Olim has been through our program. And the Gvahim Tech Heights program has been running for 2 years with more than 350 participants going through the program. 90% find jobs within 6 months. We have 95 mentors, a pool of 95 mentors that's basically are ready to adopt an Ole or take over and take an Ole and guide him through the process. And of course, you have the whole Gvahim staff, which is all professional HR people. So that's basically the service we offer. And the beauty of it is also, as I see it, is that those 3,000 that's been through our program the last 14 years, and we also have an alumni platform, And basically those are the same people as Ari mentioned that basically passes it forward. That today when I have an Ole and I'm basically just connecting, I have an Ole from look interested in a specific company, and I know which of our old alumni are working there. These are the first ones I reach out to that can help, and I connect the new Ole to basically the old Ole working in that company, and they can tell both about the insights about the company, but also of course connect them to and pass the CV forward internally, which again means the world in Israel. So that's the Tech Heights program. If you are a software engineer, data scientist, you're welcome to check us out on our website and apply. We have a principle that we start. Anyone can start from wherever he is in the world, whenever he wants, basically. And that's because most of it is individual consultations before Aliyah. And then when you come to Aliyah, we continue the process until you find a job. So it's the full circle, or the full cycle, you would call it. So to give a small, a few perspectives on how we experienced the COVID situation in the tech sector here during the COVID-19 crisis. So obviously there were a few companies, especially of course in the tourist business and tourist sector, the service sector took a hard hit. The tech sector as a whole took a less hit than most of the sectors, of course. Especially even there were a few companies that even thrived during the Corona crisis. Companies in the website building field such as Wix, Fiverr, education and remote collaboration, Monday.com, Kaltura. In the gaming sector, apparently people are gaming more when they're quarantined at home. So Playtika, Moonactive. The e-commerce sector has been also hiring pretty well, stable, like Amazon, Dynamic Yield, Camilio, LivePerson, and also fintech companies like Payoneer, Melio, and also the traditional Olim company like MyHeritage. And all these companies I mentioned now, all these sectors, which has been relatively stable compared to some other sectors, they are all looking for, of course, engineers and R&D, but they're also looking for non-tech. And this is obvious because I'm from Denmark, and with all due respect to Denmark, the market for Israeli companies is not to sell to countries like that, where the market, everybody Israeli, all Israelis, they think of when all the startups and all the tech companies, they think about, of course, selling and marketing to the US. And there you need US native speakers. It's always going to be, and it always will be, always have been very, very preferable. And there's always preference for native English speakers, and it's always been in demand for the tech industry. I'm thinking about positions such as customer success managers, tech support, sales, and the marketing positions, especially the customer success and sales. Customer success is really a position that has really thrived the last years. As a type of position that basically combines both support and soft sales, you could say. You can look it up more, but it's really a field that all of these companies I mentioned, they all need people like that. And I started my career in Israel, the first 5 years being in tech sales, and I had no tech background. You need to have, of course, be easy to learn things, and you need to be a little bit tech savvy, but there is definitely a place for everybody, especially if you're a native English speaker in the Israeli tech sector. So yeah, that's just a few perspectives and a little bit of our program, the Tech Heights program. And I said we also have Aliyah Prep, which is for non-engineers. And we also have, of course, when you come to Israel, the Green Career Center, which is basically for all professions. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Okay, so now I'm going to ask some of the questions. Can you address salaries in tech? Are they comparable to US salaries? A main concern is being able to make ends meet and live a lifestyle without too much trouble. I'm going to start with Ari. Could you address salaries?
Sure. Again, I think there's a couple caveats there. First of all, it depends where in the US, because as someone who came from New York to Israel, it was a very different transition, or somebody who comes from Silicon Valley, it's going to be a very different transition than someone coming from Baltimore or Chicago or Atlanta, for example. My personal experience was really interesting is when I came from New York, and moved to Israel. Like for me, Aliyah was the first and foremost thing. So I actually took about a 30% pay cut during my Aliyah. But what's been really fascinating is during the amount of opportunities that I've had since then, and the opportunities for growth. The team that I was in the States got reorged and changed 20 different times, and who knows where I would have been if I had stayed there. Whereas where I am now is multiple levels of ahead of where I was in the States, and with that, my salary and career has grown as well. And so what I can say is I wouldn't expect a one-to-one representation, but I do think that they are competitive. The range would probably be, and again, it depends on your experience level, it depends on your background, it depends on the company, it depends on whether it's a corporate or a startup. But I would say the traditional range is between 15,000 shekel a month on the low end, and on the higher end, 45 to 50,000 on the way higher end of the spectrum. So what I would recommend is there's also a lot of resources online. We also on the Olim group, if you join, you can search. There are like calculators that will show you, depending on what the skill set, depending on what, like whether it's JavaScript. I saw somebody mention something about Microsoft SQL or .NET development. They actually have a lot of resources that can kind of give you good estimates. So also feel free to follow up with me on LinkedIn or Twitter afterwards if you guys have additional questions. I'd be happy to follow up too for specific cases.
Thank you. Roy, this one's for you. If people are self-taught, if they're self-taught developers, how hard is it for them to get a position if they don't have a BA in computer science, BSc?
It depends on the company. Different companies approach it in different ways, but in general, I think the industry is tending towards, it doesn't really matter. Like if you bring, especially a portfolio of projects that you've done and show something that is really impressive, it really doesn't matter what your degree is in. And on the opposite side, if you bring a really impressive degree, but you don't have anything to kind of show in terms of experience, then that maybe won't be in your favor as well. So I think the focus is on doing things, and once you've done something, showcase it, save it somewhere, put it in your LinkedIn profile, in your CV, in your GitHub. Yeah, show what you've done. In things that are a bit more mathematically leaning, if it's machine learning or advanced algorithms or anything like that, I think you should have, or at least try to get something, some kind of a degree, even if it's not in a university. It's good if it's a college. The better the brand, the better it is. Or if you know online courses that are really good, try to do that. Try to do the exercises. Show that you know. But yeah, I don't think it's a definite requirement, and I think that people who focus too much on the certification itself and not the actual experience and something to show for, can find it a bit hard to find a job sometime, even though they're very impressive on paper.
Thank you so much. Johnny, your turn. Can you address the concept? Oh.
No, I just wanted to.
Can you address the concept of ageism in the tech industry?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to also chip in on the question before. It really is true what Roy says. This is our experience. We have Israel is all about tachlis. What tachlis can you do when you get to those? The CV might help you get the first phone interview, but when you come to the technical test, when there's whiteboard testing, they want coding, they want to see how you actually what you can actually do. So the people who self-taught, for sure, if you're good, you're good. That's it. It's that's how it is in Israel. So regarding age, so it really depends on which type of position we're talking about. If we're talking about software engineers, and also if we're talking about you're going to be a manager or not, if you're coder, then of course when you reach over the 40s, 45, I would say that they're more interested in younger. But then again, if you're a manager level, of course, managerial, project management, product manager, then it's less when you get to those ages, in the 45, 50. But let's say the sales and customer success management, it's really, that's not so much an issue. It can even be an advantage to be a little bit older and be a little bit more able to sell. So if you have a lot of you're a great salesperson in a tech company, you'll find a good job here.
Does anybody else want to take on ageism for a second? No, don't raise your hands all at once. So I'll tell you a couple of things. Roy?
Now, I'll just say we have a few companies that I think maybe the average age is just much higher. For example, NDS, that was sold to Cisco, and then now it's called Cinemedia. They were bought by Cinemedia. Amazing company. I think most of the people that I know there are over 40 and doing like 40, 50, 60, and are doing amazing work. And yeah, so it really depends on the company too.
I also just wanted to, sorry, I just forgot to say something. DevOps, for instance, the whole field of DevOps, they actually prefer people who are older. DevOps is kind of like advanced technical support, you can say.
And I think sales and customer support too, if you have experience and you come from a specific industry, it's very appreciated. By the way, if you look at numbers of entrepreneurs in Israel, I think the average number for successful exits are around 55. So it's not what they thought, it's only like 20 something that are there. But it's true that if you're in a fast growing area like web development and you're 50 something, it really depends. Like if you're not very up to date with the new technology and everything that's coming out every second, and it's new languages coming out every year almost, then that is what usually makes it harder. And I think some people maybe lock themselves into a certain kind of either it's a salary or a type of conditions, and then are afraid to go back. And sometimes that I think is holding them back and makes the job search much longer, where they do have jobs available, but they maybe just say no to them because they feel like they have to keep going.
Thank you so much. I will also add that having advised people of all ages and stages and all careers, many times people that are mature professionals, I recommend that they open up a consulting or freelance gig so that they can collect clients. You can get 3 or 4 clients, and they want you, and the price point is the right price point. It also allows you for the flexibility that you want as a mature employee. And anybody who would like can email me afterwards. I sent my email out to everyone so that I can discuss this with you and also offer you mentors and help you out with that. Okay, let me see if there's any other interesting questions. Okay, some people wanted to know if they should bring their job with them or try to integrate into the Israeli tech world. So that'll be for you, Ari.
Yeah, that one I'll be happy to take. If you can bring a job with you, it's the best. In my opinion, that's the #1 thing that you can do. Coming, like for me specifically, in my own experience, coming to Israel with a job and not having to deal with all the search for the job and all the craziness really helped me get grounded. I recognize that not everybody has those opportunities, and that's why these networks and this infrastructure is here to support. In those cases, again, feel free to reach out. But if you have that job and you have that foundation, definitely start with that, because there's so much coming at you when you make your first Aliyah jump in the first 6 months, whether that's, figuring out Bituach Leumi, whether that's figuring out your pension, whether that's figuring out all these different logistics about your house and your car and if you have kids, school and everything. Having one less thing on the table is huge. And then after that, as you get adjusted, if you want different opportunities, having that foundation experience also provides you the ability then to make pivots and transitions. So that would be my key recommendation, is if you can bring a job with you, do it. If not, we're also here to support, and that's why we're all on this call.
Thank you so much. The next question I have is for someone looking to pivot into the software field. What coding languages or other programs do you recommend for them to learn? I'll start with that one with Roy.
So in Japan specifically, there's a problem that there aren't enough large companies, especially in the web and kind of software apps industry. So I think it's not there will be very few opportunities for you if you're just starting out in web and software and coming to Jerusalem. So maybe I'll send that one to Tel Aviv. But I would check out I forgot the name, GitHub and Stack Overflow do surveys every year of the hottest languages to learn on the market right now. I think we see a lot of people developing in JavaScript, and every new kind of version of JavaScript is always relevant. React, Angular, Flutter, backend, MongoDB. I don't know, I could go on. So it's just check out the kind of hottest things in the market right now. If you're bringing that, especially Israeli companies love to say that like somebody's bringing it from the outside. So if they were abroad and they are bringing some knowledge of, I don't know, they studied MongoDB in the States. So it looks impressive. So I would go for the newest technologies that are out there.
Yeah, Python also.
Thank you so
Python.
much. Thank you so much. I understand that our time is up. Again, I want everybody to take my email, rachel@nbn.org.il, and I will also forward to Ari, Roy, and to Johnny. I thank you so much for coming this evening and sharing with your experience and for all that you do for Olim. The three of you are rock stars, and I am absolutely grateful to you guys for joining us, and continue doing the fantastic stuff that you do.